Buongiorno, benvenute e benvenuti a EIMA 2022, un focus speciale su tutto ciò che riguarda l'agricoltura digitale. Vi ricordo che potete trovare a Padiglione 37 area EIMA Digital, dove uno dei fiori all'occhiello quest'anno è la presenza di macchine robotiche, quindi macchine autonome e robot agricoli. Un tema che si è affermato prepotentemente. Siamo passati da una situazione dove sembrava fantascienza fino a pochi anni fa e poi magicamente ci siamo trovati questi robot presenti sul mercato, venduti e realizzati per le più svariate operazioni. Molte piccole aziende, start-up che si sono affacciate a questo mondo investendo moltissimo in ricerca e sviluppo. Chiaramente queste aziende hanno avuto anche necessità di spingere per l'adozione della robotica in campo agricolo, così come di fare rete, di mettersi in contatto e anche eventualmente di fare lobby e capire insomma come proiettarsi verso il futuro. Di questo oggi parleremo con i nostri ospiti, quindi diamo il benvenuto a Elisa Breu, funzionaria comunicazione di Gofar Fira, con il presidente Alessandro Malavolti. Buongiorno Presidente. Con Lorenzo Marconi, cofondatore Field Robotics, Riccardo Barsantini, direttore commerciale di 12 Steps. Buongiorno a tutti, benvenute e benvenuti. Prima domanda, partiamo da Elisa Breu. Abbiamo detto la robotica si sta affermando, c'è necessità di creare un modo per promuoverla, per mettere insieme le aziende. Avete creato Gofar, ecco, cos'è Gofar, perché è nato e quali sono gli obiettivi che si è posta di risolvere, se vogliamo?
I don't have the translation yet, so I'm gonna try to understand what you asked me.
Okay, maybe I translate for you. So, why is Gofar born? So, what was the purpose behind the creation of this organization? What is Gofar first, and what's your objectives?
Thank you. So, to explain what Gofar is, I need to explain to you how Fira was created. So, Fira was created in 2016 by Nayo Technologies because they thought that there weren't in any event who talked about agricultural robotics. There were events for agricultural agtech, but not agricultural robotics. So they decided to create an event where people of the industry, all the industry, the growers, the robot manufacturers, the technology suppliers, even the researchers and academics, everyone can be at one event to talk about the industry, the issues of this industry, because there are many, and to find together the solution to it. So that's how FIRA, the International Forum for Agricultural Robotics, it's in French, so in English it's backwards, was created. And then seeing that this event were bigger and bigger with lots of registrants, they saw that it was a little problem for them because they organized it and there were other companies who were competitive to them. So they decided to team up with French other companies to create Gofar. So Gofar is a non-profit association whose mean global organization for agricultural robotics. And Gofar was created to develop and promote the industry in the international level. So Gofar is an association with 5 companies coming from France in the agricultural robotics industry. So you have Axema, Robagri Inrae, Capagro, and Nayo Technologies, and they are organizing some things to develop this industry. So we have, for example, our media, who's called Agricultural Robotics News. So this media is online, and it's online media who will bring to you the latest advances or problematics and talk about those problematics for you to know more about them. We also create forums like the World FIRA. So the FIRA is 2 forums for now. You have the worldwide one, who is in Toulouse in France, and you have the regionals one. So for the regionals one, you have for now the FIRA USA, who is specialized in the agricultural robotics industry of California. And we will create more of regionals one, because FIRA is aimed to talk about the difficulties of the countries. So the World FIRA is worldwide, and the regionals one is the issues of the country. And then for finish, GoFar is also aimed to develop this industry in trade fair like AIMA. So we are present in agricultural trade fair to talk and to put in light the robotics in the industry in trade fair that are now more present with robotics. So that's the main goal of GoFar.
Thank you, Mrs. Abro. Presidente, a questo punto si è parlato della necessità di promuovere la robotica, ha parlato appunto anche nei trade show come EIMA, quindi qual è la sensazione sulla presenza della robotica in questa edizione e qual è anche il ruolo della collaborazione che la Federazione Fedona Coma può avere con GoFar e con FIRA?
Allora, faccio una premessa: la robotica stiamo vedendo solo la punta dell'iceberg, nel senso che abbiamo appena iniziato. Si vedono cose bellissime, Padiglione 37, poi abbiamo qualche esempio anche qui davanti a noi. Penso che buona parte del futuro della meccanica agricola, soprattutto delle culture specializzate, passi attraverso questo.
Especially specialized growing, I'd like to explain why we're going to deal with this. We certainly have to promote and push and show robotics, because a small portion of excellent operators in agriculture should start introducing robotics, not just for economic reasons. It has to, of course, be worthwhile economically, but that's not the most important point, the aspect of the economy, but especially in terms of science. I am an entrepreneur who for 4 years has contributed to the association. I remember that when I put the first robot in my factory some many years ago, 4 years ago, the first did have some problems, but it allowed me to grow in my scientific knowledge, in my experience. And it allowed me also to help my company grow much quicker than others. And this is the question. Some of the robots work very well. Others have to be developed a bit more. There's a learning curve in everything, as in every sector. But this is a time that we have to show this sort of technology to young people. They have to, if you like, get their hands dirty and also perhaps burn their fingers. They have to go for the experience of robotics and forge ahead. So as an association, also as a fair, we therefore have to promote this in many ways, in fairs and in all other sorts of events. We have to encourage experimentation. Certainly, this is something that the younger people have to go for. Perhaps the more wealthy of us have to go for. And this is something which, if you like, is a bit of flower in the buttonhole. We are at the beginning, but we must go for it. At the beginning of the 2020s, we are really in the era of robotics. We've gone from 3.0, 4.0, now we're at the era of robotics. Thank you very much. Chairman. Now, I know that you have to leave us, so thank you for coming to introduce this. Can I add a couple more things? Now, this is a personal thought of mine. I speak personally. The term robot comes from the 1920s and 30s. Kolek was the name of the Czech author who developed this word, who coined this term. And it's a book that, in fact, he wrote about this. He showed this robot worker, because the term robot in Czech means a very hard, difficult job. And I mean, why should we use robots? Just because we think we're really à la page and fashionable. But it's to do something which, in fact, is very difficult to do. And I think we have to, therefore, divide our agriculture in two large sectors: open field agriculture and specialized agriculture. In open field agriculture, robotics does have a sector of work. But I can't really see a 500, 600, 700,000 combine harvester being shifted and put out of the market by a robot. I think that in some operations, perhaps in some crops, for example, plowing, it might in fact be of use. But when we have more delicate activities, especially like weeding, you know that weeding is very costly, and the chemical cost of weeding is very important. And in these cases, robotics starts to become very interesting, especially over mechanical weeding. Now, I would in fact like to show you this weeder. And the other field of application is in specialized agriculture. And by specialized agriculture, we mean the enormous amount of workers that we use and manpower that we use. And this is where robotics comes in. For example, if you think about olive harvesting or grapes and so on, and when we have to harvest, for example, courgettes or apples again. But here again, robotics is not so much an economic aspect, but in fact, when we can pick these things individual, well, that's the future, I think. I'm not going to go into climate issues, etc. Our future, in other words, perforce, has to be through robotics. So my hope is that you will look at robotics in sectors where there's a lot of manpower that you have to use. So I apologize that I have to leave.
Abbiamo tanti appuntamenti e non riesco a seguire questo interessantissimo convegno sulla robotica. Grazie ancora.
Something which keeps me busy all day. Thank you very much. Now we have now talked or introduced the idea of introducing robotics in specialized agriculture. So can you tell us about how you developed field robotics? You have experience in drones, and then it was decided that working in the field in agriculture was really what you wanted to do. So how did you think about creating a machine for specialized agriculture? Okay. Field robotics started in the university sector, especially a European project which developed drones, not so much for agriculture, but for research and for a whole series of other things that we were involved in, and which involved drones. But we were looking into autonomous navigation, AI, control systems, and the robustness which is needed, but also needed in agriculture. So that's where we got into the research. And then when we decided to, 5 or 6 years ago, develop a spin-off, we looked around And we looked at the market potential in Europe and in Italy, and we saw that the aerial part, which was too niche, and what we had to do first and foremost was to develop land-propelled vehicles. There's the AgRobotics system, which develops a system which can handle large extensions and extensions, and not making lots of specialist small machines, not making one larger and larger machine, but especially using this in terms of specialty crops, not so much open field agriculture. We're now looking at glass houses, fruit and veg growing and so on, where robotics are especially of interest. Now, I am a University of Bologna professor, and this is, I say, a spin-off of the University of Bologna that we have developed, and coordinating automation issues for many years now, and seeing this flow of students who are very high quality pass through the university. I saw agriculture and automation in agriculture as an unknown factor for many years, but nonetheless as a sector with enormous potential. So the aim was to get my students to know this sort of application in a region, especially a region like ours, that tend to be eaten up by automotive, by packaging, because of course this is famous in our region. But I was trying to, if you like, divert them to this area of agriculture, and to look at the sustainability, the incredible sustainability of this. We developed this machine, which you can see in Hall 36, which is revolutionary, of a different concept. And the idea, as the President said, to go towards a niche market, but niche markets which really are significant for robotics. Thank you, Professor. Now, obviously, these machines then have to go into the market and be sold, and the market has to want these machines. So I think 4 Steps was born for this reason, to promote agricultural robotics on the market. Now, why did you choose this, or go in this direction, if you like, this very futuristic idea for Italy, for an Italian agricultural company to go in this direction? I'm called Bastantini, and I am the marketing side of the company. Now, which is called Steps. Let me explain where we come from. We are a group of multinational ex-managers working in the chemical field, and we decided to leave the market that we operated in for many years. And we wanted to reflect on the opportunities that the future would give us. And increasingly, the chemical solution in the last 30 years was the cheapest, most simple, quickest solution. And it helped us certainly to develop agriculture. But for many reasons now, chemical agents are going to be less and less available, including weeders. And the President talked about the problem of weeders, a lot of manpower which is required. And the market now is in fact beginning to have new requirements in terms of weeding. And they're very concrete, the requests coming out from air drones, and also drones that work on the land. Keeping one's feet on the land and the ground is very important. And therefore, when the farmer and the operator feels this need, well, you've got a market there that you can use. And these machines are very pioneering. Even if I say that there are mature solutions already available to solve some of these problems, certainly from when it comes to specialized agriculture, if we look at vineyards, grass houses, and other things where you have a series of problems. The problems of availability of agricultural chemicals, which is no longer as widely available, and the question of manpower, the availability of manpower, but also the fact that this manpower has to be expert. I mean, you have to train them. These people who you send into the field, in fact, have to know about what to actually weed, otherwise they might uproot things which are useful. So our philosophy is to try and do this, to bring together the various disciplines, which in fact, of course, includes chemical agents, which remain, and also to link in with various crops, organic crops, and to bring together these things with robotics, and do this especially in the specialist agricultural field. 12 Steps was launched only a couple of weeks ago, and so we're really newborns. And this has sprung out of Agro, another company, and 12 Steps, this new company, wants to combine several disciplines, several initiatives to defend agricultural crops, especially starting from specialist agriculture. Now, we have talked about how and why to create this sort of company, to propose these markets, these machines on the market, to get the market to know these questions. And also, next year, in February 2023 in Toulouse, I think on the 7th of February next, there's the Workfira company. And it is a forum, of course, but also it will be an exhibition of machines in the field. What can we expect from this fair? I mean, what are the expectations for this fair that's going to come up in February?
The World Fira will be, so it will be in February. So what we can expect is a brand new event. I don't know if some of you all already know this event, but it always be in a convention center. And this year we will be in the field. So this year we will really be next to the machines in the field. So this is one of the greatest change of our event. So World Fira will be 3 days of networking times. So a lot of the people of the industry will be there to talk and to see what are the main issues of this year in the industry, with 1 day of scientific workshops. So you will have 1 day especially dedicated to R&D, who can be very interesting to have just 1 day of that. And then 2 days of demos in the field, expo zone and conferences, to really see what the business is right now and talk about everything is coming. Sorry.
Ma cos'è?
At the present time, in terms of turnout and the number of visitors, what sort of figures are you expecting in terms of visitors? I know that the Federation, in fact, wants to participate directly to promote robotics for companies. So what can we expect? What can we see? And how many visitors do you expect?
Expecting 1,000 participants. So the last years with the COVID, we had 1,000 or even a little bit more because it was a digital version. But this year is in person, so people can make it. So we are expecting 1,000 participants coming from 17 countries. So, and then we are expecting 30 autonomous solutions and 20 demos in the field, but it can be more. we don't know. And a lot of exhibitors. Last year we have more than 50. So it was a big show, and we're hoping that we will have as many. And the last edition of Fura USA showed us that people are ready to come, and people are very interested in it. So we are hoping to have a huge number of participants.
Molto bene, quindi aspettiamo un fantastico evento.
Thank you very much. So we expect a fantastic event in Toulouse next week where we'll see the machines in the field, machines like the machines developed by Field Robotics. Now, what are the challenges? You talked about students before and so on developing these machines. What were the challenges that you had to solve? What were the things that were most difficult to get over?
A me ha fatto colpito questa frase.
I was struck by something that I saw in one of the European financing programs, i.e. that agriculture is not just a question of vision. Precision agriculture is, of course, precision. There's mapping, there's vision, there's everything that has to do with precision. And obviously, robotics is very, very clearly part of it. The question is to develop. We have an engineering mechatronic challenge to meet to make these machines. And increasingly, the operation of the machine, the robot, has to be very fine-tuned, very highly fine-tuned. And the challenge is to put together a sustainability, the robustness of the machine, AI, in a hostile environment. So that's the real challenge that we face, and put that all in a robot. Now, we have, in fact, continued to maintain our vision, but to develop a machine which is robust. In fact, we have a 1-ton payload machine that has been developed. It's not something that is just developed in the laboratory. The idea is that we have to really take it around and to have an automatic transmission system as part of this, to have a sprayer, a precision sprayer attached to it. So once we have built this electric platform, and electricity is all important, not just because of sustainability issues, and there's also the revolution of electricity, which perhaps is at the last question to be developed in sustainability. There's the whole question of the battery that you have to develop, and also of dismantling and decommissioning the battery. But the real question is movement, the robustness of the machine, and how it works. Yes, the electrical self-propelled aspect is all important. A large payload machine which has to, in fact, work on the slope is a very challenging mechatronic issue. So we had to develop, as I say, a robust machine which was autonomous and which could be expanded. If, for example, I see a prairie in front of me, I like to call this machine plug in the field. I have, if you like, a plug for electricity, which can plug in lots of technology which thus far has only been used not in agriculture but in various other different sectors like packaging and so on. And with robotic AI techniques, I can bring this into the field. So that was the challenge, to keep our goal very clearly in mind, but to actually physically develop this, and this was a great challenge. With regard to this whole question of bringing the machine to the field, what does that actually mean? I mean, what are farmers asking of you? Is there a request for robotics out there? And people who want to invest in robotics? I mean, what is their attitude? What is their mindset also after they've started using it? Thank you for that question. This allows me to explain better what we're doing, and I'll also answer a question. Now, in Italy, we represent nanotechnology and AgRobotics, two agri-tech companies. In the question of Naya, they're terrestrial land robots that carry out several tasks demanded by farmers and farms. And in many cases, in fact, there's not yet a demand for robots because farmers don't know that these robots are there. So we have, in fact, very many answers that can meet requirements that have yet to be voiced. And we, for example, one of the companies, in fact, has a self-propelled robot that uses AI with precise movement abilities that can solve some of the tasks and difficulties that a farm has. And in fact, we solve the problem of the manpower because the machine works by itself, and also it works inter-row and between the rows in some cases, especially in sectors where there's a high manpower demand. Farms also have to go for sustainability, and you immediately think of environmental sustainability. But farms need another sort of sustainability, economic sustainability. So here the economic aspect has to be taken into account, and it has to be economic as well as environmental. Now, in this case, robots from Fu Electrics gives a very positive answer and solves a whole series of problems. And it's very much like the automotive sector. The number of batteries that will be created in the market, of course, will be an issue that has to be solved. But thus far today, the companies looking into this can already put in the field something very practical. Jinai can also present now certified machines and no longer prototypes. Several have already been sold or in use. There are various units which are out there in Europe. Italy is a bit lagging behind compared to others, but we hope that we will catch up with the other European countries, because in the Mediterranean basin, and Italy is at the forefront here, all the technologies already exist which can answer the many questions. So we will see drones and machines which are self-propelled moving in our field, in agricultural fields as well. As we have said, specialized agriculture is where robotics work best, and we are top in specialized agriculture. Mr. Malavolti, in fact, said something in his introduction, and this is the cue for my last question. Now, you talk about creating curiosity, giving incentives, educating the market from many points of view. So my first question for Lisa is, how important is events like fairs in creating curiosity and creating a demand for farmers? How many farmers have you seen in your previous events, and how many operators of farmers do you expect to have at the fair who will be interested in this new sector?
So trade shows like AIMA are very important for that, because it shows that the robots are ready to be in the market and are ready to be buy, because the market is ready. Years later, the market wasn't ready. It's for that robots wasn't at fairs, but now they are here because it's ready, and the growers want to invest in them. So for the growers in our event, we saw many of them, and we asked them what they think about invest in those robots. And in our survey, 30% of French growers say that they are ready to invest in 5 years in a robot. So it's a big number for the market, because growers weren't that much happy with it a few years ago. And so in the event, we are like, I can tell you the numbers, but we have, I think, 15% of our attendees who are growers, who is a big number because we have 15% of robot manufacturers, 11 of technology suppliers, so it's one of the highest number. And for this edition, we aim to have more growers because we are partnering with the CUMA, who is a French syndicate of growers who give machines to the others, who help them, and they will bring more growers to the event. So this year we cross fingers to have much more and to teach them what robotics is, to show them that robotics is not here to replace them, but to help them, and it's for that Wolfira is created too.
Ok, quindi insomma aspetteremo febbraio per
Thank you
vedere
very much.
cosa...
So we're going to wait for February to see. Now, talking about training, obviously we need technical people. We need engineers who, in fact, want to work in agriculture and agricultural machines and AI machines, and to work with extension agents to use these machines better. So what is the role of the academic world in encouraging young people to go into agriculture? As you said, in fact, in this region, students tend to go towards the packaging world, automotive world. How can we encourage them to, in fact, go for agriculture?
Training is indeed crucial because, the revolution is not just a technology-based revolution, but it's also service-based. You have to change the mindset of the designers and those who maintain these machines, and also you have to change the mindset of those using those machines. I feel great responsibility in terms of training people, because it's not just a matter of changing from one production to the other, but it's about talking to the students. I have experience in engineering of automation at the University of Bologna. My students are really very brilliant, very smart. They have a vision, they are optimistic, and they are ready to take challenges. But we have to present them all these challenges. We have to make them understand and make them aware of the sustainability issues. Sustainability may be an important driver. It's very dear to the young generations. And then we should try and train not only people technically, not only about the service and maintenance of these robots, but we have to train the users of the robots. The vision behind fair robotics is collaborative robotics. As the president said, robots mean that they do the other things, do the dirty jobs, but it doesn't mean that you have to leave the cognitive side to robots. You have to develop a machine which can collaborate with the person who's trained on it, who has to work together with the robot. And you have to find the right trade-off between leaving the dirty job to the robot and leaving the more cognitive, intellectual job to human beings. This is the true challenge. We lack labor in agriculture, so automation is essential, but what we lack is labor doing the dirty job, because the labor that does the most intellectual cognitive work is already available and should be integrated with the robotic systems. the cobot, collaborative robotics is an interesting discipline for agriculture. Well, it's an interesting topic. I think there would be a lot to say about interoperability, collaboration, and machines driven by human beings. There would be a lot to say, but back to training and education. What is the role of 12-Step, a company like yours, in terms of training and market outlets? It's all about marketing, communication, making people aware of these technologies. Let me, however, highlight one important aspect, which is simplicity. The robots are not very well known, so at first sight you say, well, a robot, you will need a NASA engineer to operate this robot, to switch it on and off. No, that's completely wrong. Now technology is affordable to all those who are eager to know something more. In order to make something complex simpler, you need people making complex mechanisms simpler. But once the machine is there, once it's on the market, once it can be sold and used, it's much easier. We need adequately trained people that can explain something, that can highlight how simple it is to use those robotic machines. That's very important because one of the barriers of growers, of farmers, vis-à-vis this technology is that they are skeptical about using it. They don't know whether they can use it. That's something that many people think, but absolutely it is possible to use these machines. In the field trials of the last few months, we met many farmers. They saw them for the first time. After 1 hour, they were able to set them up, to make them work. Of course, they needed a support to start with, but then they could use the machines smoothly. The farms need practicality, something practical, a practical approach. Easy instruments, easy tools and machines. These machines can be simple to use as well, but of course upstream there has to be a process whereby these machines are made simpler. And perhaps we should change the mindset of farmers. They shouldn't be afraid, they shouldn't be scared of new technologies, but rather attracted by them. Well, the element of curiosity is a must in order to overcome habits and traditions. And curiosity is a feature of the young generations. Curiosity will be a driver for the young generations, and they will help older people get closer to something they are afraid of. So really, we have to open our doors to young people. We're also waiting for students from the University of Bologna in the coming days. But they are certainly curious. Let's now open the Q&A part. If you have any questions, please raise your hand and I'll come to you with a mic. Anything you would like to ask of our guests? If not, I thank all of you. Really, thank you for joining us. Robotics is not only our future but also our present, I would say. So there is still a lot to be done and a lot of things are still ongoing, but we are at a starting point. Maybe before the pandemic we couldn't even imagine this, but after COVID, in Hall 37 in the robotics area, we have lots of the World Fira from the 7th to the 9th of February in Toulouse. We'll try and come to you. Thank you very much for coming and enjoy the fair.